Hello and welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to our CommScope Technical Services webcast for today. Our webcast today is titled DOCSIS and Packet Cable CPE Security Certificate Expiration and How to Fix It. My name is Tom Gibson and I will be the host of this event. We have multiple presenters today. We have Jock Crawford, who is CPE Product Staff Technical Support Engineer, and we have Dan McFarland on the line, CMTS Products Staff Technical Support Engineer. Please be aware that all lines have been placed on mute to cut down on background noise. This webcast is being recorded and it will be available for replay on ARIS Academy. And finally, I encourage you to use the question box located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen to ask Jock and Dan any questions you may have. Once you click in the box, type in your question and then hit the send button. We'll have a few minutes at the end of the webcast to review everyone's questions submitted and hopefully get you the answers that you're looking for. And with that, I'll turn the time over to Jock and Dan.
All righty. Good morning, good afternoon, or whatever time it may be. This topic is manufacturer CA certificate expiration and the background to that and the action plan. So getting the first slide, problem, so to speak, that we'll state here is that the certificates, the cable modem manufacturer CA certs, are going to expire in 2021, and that won't be a problem if action is taken, but it would be if action isn't. So we'll try to outline here what the action is, what the problem is, and the action needed to be taken. This isn't the first time that you've heard of this, I hope. We've been sending out field bulletins, and this is a list of them here. These give many of the details. I'm going to state a general overview of what the problem is and what the solution is. For the details, this is where you would look. The answers that I have to share with you are from our perspective, from our company, how it's affected us and how we're going to try to resolve it. And so you'll find the details in that field bulletin. So for a quick overview, all our DOCSIS 2 and DOCSIS 3.0 cable modems have a manufacturer CA certificate, and this was issued by Cable Labs, and at the time of installation is when they are installed. They have a 20-year lifespan, and coming up next year, starting the third quarter, they're going to be expiring, and we'll look at what the different dates are going to be. And if you don't do anything about this, then the cable modem won't be able to come online, and we'll explain what the problem is causing it to get stuck. And it depends on which CA certificate the modem has as to when the actual expiration date is. So we have different product lines which we'll look at here. And this applies to DOCSIS, Euro DOCSIS, also JDOCSIS. The focus of this presentation is DOCSIS, but the plight or situation is similar for the other two. This is going to occur due to the fact that the BPI Plus checks the certificates for their validity, and part of their validity is their expiration date. So since their expiration date is coming up, then at that time, the problem will be encountered during the BPI Plus phase of the cable modem coming online. And the problem is that it will be rejected as it won't be valid because of an expired certificate. And it's not only a CommScope problem. This is an industry-wide problem of everybody who makes cable modems, because they all use BPI Plus, and it's based on the same certificates issued by Cable Labs, and they may go back to the same early dates that we did. We were one of the first people affected by it, as it says here, because we were making modems very early on. So for more background on this, we have different expiration dates you see here on the left, in the middle column, and on the right, which correspond to the different product lines. So you've got Modo devices, Legacy ARIS, and Legacy PACE. And these all these product lines all got their manufacturer CA certs initially from Cable Labs on somewhat different dates. The first ones to be issued, as you can see here on the left, were the Motorola certificates, and they're coming up for a date of expiration in July of next year. And next was the Legacy Aris, which will be a couple of months later, September. And then lastly, next year, it's going to be the PACE modems will be expiring. And that's what will create the problem in BPI Plus. Now there's going to have the problem in BPI Plus because during BPI Plus, it's going to check the validity period. That's part of the information that's sent up when the cable modem sends up the manufacturer CA cert during the initiation of the BPI Plus sequence of the modem coming online. And so with a start date and a stop date in 2001 when they were issued and 2021 when they expire, you have a validity period which is going to be checked on the certificate. And the validity period, the initial that was issued on all of these was 20 years. So that applies to all of these devices here. There's also what's called the root CA certificate. And during BPI Plus, when we send up the manufacturer CA certificate, it is authenticated by what is called the root CA certificate, which Cable Labs owns. And if it's Eurodoxus, it's called, it was Excentus is the entity. And these are programmed into the CMTS to enable BPI Plus to occur. And so the manufacturer CA certificate that comes up when it goes to get authenticated by the DOCSIS root certificate, this is when the problem is going to begin, because that's called, I think it's the chain of validation or a validation chain. And the first link in the chain will break down there because the certificate will be rejected. It won't work because it's expired. But it's worth pointing out that this certificate itself has an expiration date. It's going to expire in 2031, and it started in January 31st, 2001. And so these certificates all have to be valid for BPI Plus to work. So that's the problem. So what's the solution? So the solution we're going to outline from, as I mentioned at the beginning, from the point of view of our devices. But the general outlines of the problem and solution will be the same for all cable modem manufacturers. So there's three approaches. One is updating the manufacturer CA certificates in the field via firmware upgrade. And let me reiterate also, these have all been sent out. These solutions are contained in the field bulletins, which were in the early slide that I showed. And they have the specifics for these. But you can update the manufacturer CA certificates. There are solutions from the CMTS side. CMTS configuration can be changed to accommodate this and resolve the issue. Also, the issue is resolved by replacing the units with units that don't have this issue. All our devices, since 2013, for example, the newer devices do not use the same certificates as the earlier ones. Early models, it uses a different method, which is not prone to this, or it's not liable to having this issue and won't have it. So you can replace them with those. If you take the first solution, approaching it from this angle, we have been issued new manufacturer CA certificates with an extension of 20 years. So these can be acquired through upgrading to new firmware. So for this, you just upgrade to the new firmware, which has been, the specifics of which have been sent out in the field bulletin that went out, the CPE field bulletin for manufacturer CA cert expiration. I'll give you another 20 years on these. It'll use this at that point. So it's firmware based, so it's not dependent on anything in non-volatile memory. But most importantly, probably for you to keep in mind, is that if you're going to do this before they expire, because it's not going to work this isn't going to be helpful after they've expired. The solution needs to be applied before. And then this cites the field bulletin, CFB 200810, and this describes the firmware upgrades needed for errors in surfboard modems to avoid loss of service caused by these manufacturer CA certificates. Let me see if there's something I missed here. Oh, it's okay. All right. Now, this option is available for the CMs, the cable modems listed in the field bulletin. It's important to know that it's not available for certain models also. DOCSIS 2.0 surfboard modems sold through retail. 2.0 and 3.0 PACE modems don't have this firmware upgrade option. Carry on, nor DOCSIS 1.x modems, 1. whatever. Also, DOCSIS 2.0 devices will only have certificates, the firmware delivery of renewed certificates for the 2.0 devices would be subject to licensing costs and may not be available for all models. So that's not readily available option, although you can get in touch with us about it. Okay, there's other options, and the next one is the CMTS option. And we're going to look at it first from the point of view of the release 9.0 firmware on the E6000, which is the latest and greatest and best solution for this. And on this, you can set there's a couple of ways to go about it. One is to set the CA certificate to trusted. And then all the devices that rely on the expired manufacturer CA certificate can go ahead and register normally. It notes here that this release has been improved so that it can be simplified the certificate trust across all system reboots and software upgrades. And then for details, those are available in the E6000 9.0 user guide. Also, in release 9.0, an option is turning off the manufacturer CA cert validity period checking. So since what flunks the modem when it comes up, what flunks its certificate is its validity period is scrutinized and it's seen to be expired, this can be approached from the CMTS by turning off checking of the validity period. So in release 9.0, there's a new command to disable only the manufacturer CA certificate validity period checking, and then that problem is resolved. It's global for an entire chassis, and that makes it a quick and easy fix. The details for this are also available in the 9.0 user guide. And then prior to release 9.0 on the E6000, the solution is turning off validity period checking. And on the E6K, on these prior releases, this is done on a cable MAC by cable MAC basis, and that way the expired certificates can be used. The information on the procedures for using this are in the field bulletin cited right here, CFB 200402. On C4s and BSRs, it's the same procedure, turning off validity period checking. It's also done the same way, cable MAC by cable MAC basis. That makes it so these expired certificates can still be used, and then that's available, the details in these field bulletins, CFB 200402 and CFB 200403 for the C4 and the BSR 64,000 respectively. For other vendors, I don't know the specifics, but I do know that they're coming up with solutions themselves, and they'll probably be somewhat similar solutions, and you will need to consult them for them. You want to have an action plan. This is not a problem. There's action steps can be taken to prevent any outages or cable modems not coming online at this time. So there's no reason that a problem should come up if action is taken. But you want to start now. I know that some people, some MSOs, some of you listening have already started. And of course, you want to have a plan. So you want to look at what devices you have deployed, which ones are affected, which aren't, which ones can be upgraded. You can consult the field bulletin to see which ones can be upgraded and what firmware they need to be upgraded to have the renewed certs. I realize here that I omitted mentioning, if you remember that in the slide that mentioned the validity period for the root certificate, let's see if I can go back to this. Right there, it was 30 years. And as you can see, those are going to expire in 2031. I just wanted to mention that here because the fact that we have a 20-year extension, it's not going to extend, even though it extends 20 years, it can't extend more than 10 years from next year because this root certificate is expiring then. And Cable Labs has no plans for renewing that one. So when I mentioned which devices can be upgraded and receive renewed manufacturer certificates, I was just reminded that you need to keep in mind that those certificates don't give you an extra 20 years. It's going to be an extra 10 years. You want to identify which devices can use a CMTS option, which may be quite a lot of them, I think, and identify which devices must be replaced. And keep in mind there that our devices the newer devices don't depend on manufacturer CA certificates. There's a different system of security checking. And so if you get the newer devices and deploy the newer devices in the field, you won't, that won't be a fourth way to be prepared and to avoid having the issue. And then lastly, if you have any doubts, any questions, you need any help, contact CommScope Tech Support for more info. And that's the presentation.
All right, thanks, Jock. At this point, we'll let everybody put in their questions. We have a few of those, so we'll go over those. But once again, reminder to everyone, if you've got questions about today's webcast, please put them in the question and answer area in the far right-hand corner. And Jock and Dan, I'll go ahead and go through the questions that we do have. The first question is, what models do not need updated firmware? And I believe the answer to that is if you get a hold of the field bulletin CFB 20-08-10, that will have a list of the modems in question that would either be Motorola or Aris or Pace modems. Is that correct?
The field bulletin, I would have to look at the field bulletin for specifics, and I don't have it in front of me right now. So I'd advise you, but you are correct. I would advise the customer to, and the questioner to look at the field bulletin. It lists the models which can get upgraded firmware. We went over the fact that the DOCSIS 2.0 devices are not going to have them, so that won't help. The devices about which you won't need to worry about it are basically our devices after 2013. So if you have a device that that you got, that was probably issued after 2013 from us, a new model, a new product line from us, those you will not need it for. And if you don't see their firmware listed in the field bulletin, you'll know that's because it's one of the newer models after 2013 for which you don't need new firmware. So if the firmware is not listed for your newer model, it doesn't need it. And the firmware that is listed is for our legacy 3.0 devices.
All right.
And I might mention too, we actually have some DOCSIS 3.0 devices that are inside there. And so, but all DOCSIS 3.1 modems will not need to get upgraded firmware. They won't need to get a new cert.
Right. Okay. The next one is kind of a piggyback on that. How do I find the field bulletins?
The field bulletins. There is the Aris customer portal. And if you work with us, we work with you through the customer portal. And one of the benefits of the customer portal is that we send you all the field bulletins. So you will find the field bulletins inside your customer portal inside the documents and webcasts section. And if for some reason you have a problem finding them, then contact CommScope Tech Support, and we'll help you find them.
All right. I think this one was already answered. The question is, what is the solution for expired cable modem certificates? And like we said, look at the field bulletin list. If your modem can be upgraded, then then get the firmware to upgrade it. If it cannot be upgraded, you might be able to use the CMTS method. If you cannot use the CMTS method, then that particular modem most likely will have to be replaced. Did I get all of that correct, Chop?
Yes, that sounds like it's correct.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Let's see. We've got a couple of more. This is a nice one. Are other CMTS providers adopting the trust certification solution? I don't think we can answer that because we're not in contact with other CMTS providers about this problem. That would be up to them. So I would say that you have to contact your CMTS provider to see what type of options they have. Let's see. The next question, if in a bind, can you just disable BPI to get cable modems online? The newer versions, are you referring to cable modems or CMTSs?
Oh, I'm referring to cable modems, answering the last one first. I'm referring to cable modems for newer versions. And as we mentioned, DOCSIS 3.1 devices, all our DOCSIS 3.1 devices are newer models. There's a couple of the newest 3.0 devices which are also covered. And what was the other question?
Can you disable BPI if you're in a bind to get cable modems online?
Right. That's the last resort, so to speak. And it's your BPI itself consists of BPI plus and BPI encryption. And so you're able to, you don't want to turn off the encryption, and you can turn off, as I understand it, where I'm not a CMTS, Dan can answer some of it too, but you turn off the BPI plus, and yes, the modem will come online without a problem because it gets stuck in BPI plus if it's expired.
So you probably won't even need to take off the BPI. The solution to get around BPI is to turn off validity period checking if you were in a bind. And for the C4, that would be per cable MAC, and for the E6000, that's a global.
Right. Yeah, the turning off the validity period, I believe, would be the best answer for that because you really don't want to turn off BPI and not have your data unencrypted over the network. Let's see. The next question: can we have the presentation and more particularly about the field bulletins? And this also was a question about the recording. So this webcast is being recorded. So the webcast recording will be available in ARIS Academy. So you'll need to log into ARIS Academy and do a search for the validity period webcast, and you should be able to find that. We should be posting that in the next few days to ARIS Academy. The next question, this is a good one. How do we get around the fact that the burned-in device certificate hasn't been signed by the new intermediate manufacturer's CA? Is there any risk to disable? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, so how do we get around the fact that the burned-in device certificate hasn't been signed by the new intermediate manufacturer's CA?
I believe that the CMTS options. The ones on the E6000, there's ones, Dan can address that, deal with the whole chain of validation.
Okay. Let's see, the next question, is there any risk to disable validity validity period check on the CMTS? Do we need to test CMTS option before rolling out to production CMTSs? If needed, how to test in the lab?
Is that a CMTS question?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, can you repeat what was
Sure.
how to test it?
Is there a risk, or is there any risk to disabling the validity period check on the CMTS? And do they need to test that beforehand?
There's no real risk that we know of. We think it's a very low risk option, and that being, we don't have any. I mean, we don't know of anything that's going to affect if you just turn off the validity period checking.
Right. It's still going to go through and use the certificates that are there. It's just not going to validate that the time frame has expired on that certificate. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And like we said, that would most likely be the better answer than turning off BPI, because then that would leave you with unencrypted data flowing across your network. So that's not a very good option if you don't have to do it. Let's see. Dan, here's a question for you. Is the validity period check disabled by default on the E6000?
I do not know for sure. I think it's off by default though, in that you would normally have turned that on. Yes.
Okay.
I can verify, but I'm pretty sure that's off default.
Okay. So if you have not configured that in your E6000 CMT configuration, then you'll be okay. It's very easy to check. If you just look at the running configuration and filter on validity check, I think you'll find it to see if it's there. Let's see. And I believe there is one. Unfortunately for everyone out there, I do not have the ability to unmute your phones. So once again, if you've got questions, please put them in the Q&A panel. With that, let's see, we have one other. I'm not quite sure I'm reading this correctly. Let me try this again. Disabling VP and CMTS can solve the issue of already expired CA. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what we're asking for. Maybe validity check would solve it, but I'm not quite sure that's what he's asking with that.
I have an idea of what he might be asking, and Dan might have an idea also. I talked to the CMTS team about this because I'm not an expert on validity, any of the settings on the CMTS. And so the briefing I got on it before this presentation coming up with it was that you want to have validity period checking turned off before the expiration date, and it's not going to be. You're going to have to go to a different means of dealing with it, which will be the trusted CAs, the trusted manufacturer CAs. So you're fine as long as you don't let them expire. So you can have expired certificates, but you want to have validity period checking turned off before the expiration date, and that will work. And this slide presentation does state that in these slides. But if the expiration date, if you don't have it, if you have validity period turned on and it expires while it's turned on, then I don't think it is going to work. So make sure you turn it off before the expiration date, and I think you're okay. Should it be that the expiration date you fail to do that, you can still remedy the situation on our product through the trusted CA certificate route.
Yeah. Okay.
You can also trust certs on the CMTS on an individual basis. You don't have to have the validity period checking turned off to accommodate modems whose certificate has expired.
Right. So you could have had that turned on initially. That would sort of be taking that route, the trusted certificate route.
Okay. Next question. I believe we have a question about Surfboard 6120 and 6180 modems. And I would believe that we're going to need to look at the field bulletin to double check that that list.
Yes, I think so. I don't have that list in front of me.
Okay, I know it's a pretty extensive list. I've looked at it, and there's more than we can really display here. So if you have problems getting a hold of the field bulletins, kind of piggybacking on that, there's a question, can we get a link to the field bulletins? They cannot find it on the ARIS support portal. There's no external visible link to the field bulletins. You have to have access to the ARIS support portal first before you can find the field bulletins. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. You can, get in touch with tech support, which you also do through the portal. So I'd encourage you just to use the portal. But if you get in touch with us, we'll certainly look it up and find it for you if you're having problems, or we'll help you get the portal working.
Okay. Okay. The question, kind of going back to the surfboard modems, it's only for DOCSIS. The firmware, the fixed firmware version he found was only for DOCSIS. He's asking about a Euro DOCSIS type.
For Euro DOCSIS?
Yeah, for the 6120 and 6180. So I think
yeah,
on that
I don't
one,
have
we'll
that
probably, we'll have to go back and look at that. We do have everyone's contact information that's asking questions. So if there's something that we don't have the answer for, we'll look for that, and we'll reach out to you individually for that as well. So so we'll make note of that one. And then another question for the field bulletins. They are on the ARIS support portal. So if you go to ask.aris.com, that's the customer support portal. You'll need to have a login for that to gain access to there. There is no external ability to access the field bulletins. Let's see. Let's see. You mentioned validity check on manufacturing cert, but what about the cable modem cert? I believe those are one and the same. Is that correct?
No, I don't think that's necessarily correct. The cable modem cert, there's a device cert, which goes into the device at the time of manufacture. So all the product lines, which we mentioned on that slide, the 3 product lines, they all got their manufacturer's cert at the same time. So that manufacturer cert is sort of for any of those devices. But when the device is the actual device cert, it goes in more around the time the device is manufactured.
Okay.
It's acquired. We get it somewhat before that time, and it's programmed into the device.
Right. So at time of manufacture is when these manufacturer certs are added
for what's called the device certs. What that
right.
The manufacturer certs go into they take the same date, and so no matter when the device was manufactured.
Right. Okay. All right. Next question. What are when the certificate expires, what indications are there at the CMTS level, and what we will see? And I'm assuming that what's going to happen is when this expires, the modems are going to go offline because of BPI, and they're not going to be able to register back with the CMTS due to that validity period being expired. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think they're going to actually get stuck in BPI init.
Okay. So if you've got modems that are stuck in BPI init, that would be something to check. But as Jock said earlier, please don't wait until then. Please go ahead and put together a plan. Look at your modems now. We have until mid next year before these certificates start expiring. So you've got 6 to 7 months to plan for that. So please please, if you need any help with that, please contact our tech support folks. They'll be happy to help you with that as well.
And Tom, just to go back on the validity period checking for the CMTS, that is off by default, just to confirm that. It was brought up earlier.
All right, so the validity period on the E6000, and I would almost assume the C4 as well, they're off by default. So, but it would pay for you to go in and check your configuration. You may have changed that at some point. The field bulletin in question has been asked a few times. That is CFB-20-08-10 is the field bulletin. Let's see. And let's see. I don't think I see. Any other questions. Lots of good questions, everyone. Like we said, if you think of something a little bit later and you have questions, please submit them to tech support. Once again, this is being recorded. We will have this recording available on ARIS Academy just a little bit later. A real quick request, can we see the slide again for the field bulletins? Jock, can you go back to that slide that has all the field bulletins on it?
Yes. Okay, there we go.
So here's all the field bulletins. You can see there's one for the E6000, one for the C4, one for the BSR 64000, the CFB 20-08-10, that's for the cable modems. That will have a list of all of the cable modems from Motorola and ARIS that are affected. We also got a couple of technical bulletins, which will give you resolutions, specifically the CMTS mitigation one there. It kind of goes through what we've talked about in this webcast already as things that you can do to help with this particular issue. Once again, thank you, Jock, and thank you, Dan, for presenting this information. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. We'll call it a close here today. Thanks for all of that. And once again, one other thing just in, if you're looking for the cable modem field bulletin, you need to be a cable modem customer, if you will, in the ARIS portal. So remember, you'll have logins if you're a CPE customer or if you're a CMTS customer. So if you have both, then you might see both the CMTS and the cable modem field bulletins there. So once again, when you look in for that, be aware of that. But with that, we'll call it a close. Thank you again, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Jock, for the presentation. And we'll see you guys for the next one.